Postgame show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. Jay will be here in a second. People are chainsawing trees in his yard or something, so we'll have Jay here in just a couple of minutes. Appreciate you hanging out with us as we, real quick, just give you a little heads up. And we've done this before, just to give to you, but again, you don't like write it down in the book. Hey, last year at this time, you know what those folks at the game did? We are going to run best of the game the next 2 weeks of the year. I mean, I'll be blunt. There's no bowl game to cover. The last 2 weeks of the year, ton of folks, everybody's listening patterns change, and people are visiting holidays and running here and there and there and here. And, we got folks with a bunch of vacation time that they haven't used because, we won't let them because we're mean and awful human beings. And with all those things going on, and with how Christmas and New Year's is set on a Thursday, and our company is giving that Friday as a company holiday for everyone. So basically our company is giving December 25th, 26th, January 1st, 2nd. So really we have these 2 3-day weeks. And with all the reasons I just told you a minute ago that I don't want to repeat and bore you, we're just going to give you best ofs of 2025. A couple of them are full days. We're just trying to think of some full days of the year that were interesting. SEC Media Days, the South Carolina Day at SEC Media Days. We're going to rerun that whole day. And from the football season, we wanted to get something to make you kind of feel good, because it was not a feel-good year. That reaction Monday after the win over Virginia Tech. Remember, life was still good. South Carolina was still ranked. Things were still looking up. There was still hope and enthusiasm and positivity. So we wanted to go back to that Monday and re-rack that for you as well. So that's where we're at. We're going to be doing basically best ofs for the final 2 weeks of the year. So we have today's show, tomorrow's show, and then we'll just re-rack you some of the best moments from 2025, and then get back to it on Monday, January the 5th. All right, I do believe a man tearing down trees with his bare hands in the yard. Jay Phillips is with us. Hey, man.
Close, yes, close. Sorry about that. I apologize. No, we had 2 trees taken out in the front yard, and there was a little delicacy there. That's not delicacy in the food sense, but one really close to the house, and the guys were having me come out and inspect a few things for them, Terry, right before they're finishing up. Because it's starting to rain here in my neighborhood. I don't know how it looks where you are or where others are, but they needed to wrap up. They needed me quickly. But yeah, anybody that knows, when you're having a tree cut within like 4 or 5 strides of your home, and especially in our case about 4 or 5 strides from my bedroom, it's mildly harrowing, even when you're using qualified professionals, which we have, and they've done a fine job. But it's still, and these are big oaks. But sadly, and I didn't want them taken out. I know nobody cares about this, but I'm going to say, when you have one, I don't like to take pine trees. I don't mind taking out. We got a bunch of those in the South, and we got a bunch of oak trees too. But these are really nice oaks. They're dying, and we knew they were dying. We've had somebody come look at them, and so sadly, even though they were once really nice, big, pretty oak trees in the front yard, they had to come out. The good news, Terry Ford, is that I now have about 3 years worth of firewood.
Oh, nice. And now is this like in June you can say, honey, I'm a little cold. Let's cook the fireplace up.
Yes, exactly. We're just gonna build fires because we can. Yes. Yes. I'm gonna see on like a 98-degree day in July. I'm gonna see if I can't just make it turn to 100.
It's like, it's a little chilly. Honey.
Yeah, with an outdoor fire pit. Now, I am kind of bummed out, man, because I was like, oh, cool. I've got a fresh batch of firewood here, and Christmas next week. And then I find out that it's going to be bleeping 72 degrees on Christmas Day. Come on, man.
Hey, you can still fire up the pit, man.
My mom, 1 year, God bless my mom, may she rest in peace, a wonderful human being who I miss dearly every day. And one of those years, because we get a 70-degree Christmas. I don't know, those of you who who grew up around here like me, I'd say we get one of those, about every 5-6 years, something like that. I'd say we get 2 70-degree Christmases inside of a decade. It feels like we do anyway. But one year, Terry, I'm not kidding, man. One year, this goes back probably sometime in the 90s. And it was like, again, it was 70 plus on Christmas. And my mom, maybe I got it from my mom. She was bummed out and like angry, right? Like she was angry at the Lord for having it be 70 degrees on his son's birthday, kind of a thing. So my mom decides to crank the AC to like 60 and put on her Christmas sweater and build a fire. By God, my mother was going to have a fire on Christmas and have it be cold enough to wear a sweater and have the fire matter. And I was like, what?
That's phenomenal.
That's dedication.
That's
phenomenal. That is dedication to the moment. So, I'll never forget that. But I was probably college age. I forget exactly what year. Might have been high school. I can't remember exactly. But I just remember that she was like, "Well,
that's fantastic."
And any of you that have a mom like that, like when your mom is just determined, you're not going to stop her. There's no reason to even talk her back off the ledge at that point. So, but she was. I will always remember that she did, man. She cranked the AC and built a fire, and I was like, "All right,
you go, Mom. Let's go."
So I don't know that we'll do that next week, but we'll see. But anyway, got a lot of firewood. But anyway, there we go. So sorry I was a couple minutes late, man, but all good around the Phillips homestead.
Nah, glad to hear it, man. When you said you found delicacies, I'm like, what the hell are you eating out in the yard? But hey, that's whatever. Whatever you got going on.
They look like little mushrooms growing on the side of the tree.
Hey,
I shouldn't have eaten those.
Got to stop now, man. Although, again, they might not be legal.
I don't know.
So basically,
they're growing in my yard. What are they going to do? Right? I mean, who's going to rat me out?
If you start talking about you're seeing your walls melting and there's llama running through your living room, we'll know what those mushrooms were about.
That's right. We'll
just
see.
Hey, all right. So we look back on yesterday because again this time today we're talking about mushrooms. Yesterday we're talking to Shane Beamer.
Right.
There you go.
They all coincide.
Exactly. So since we had the chance to yip with him over the last 24 hours, anything stick in your head about the conversation that we didn't get to yesterday?
No, again, you asked me what after we were done, and I thought the things that you had pointed out during the season were interesting that he made mention of during our conversation, and that was the leadership issue. And I wonder if we could rank some of the things that we discussed with him, where he might rank that or where we might rank that. And it's all subjective, but I found it interesting that not only, from an observational standpoint, which is so much of what we do for a living and what fans do when they're watching and commenting, but that the head coach himself said, I watched all the guys depart our team after 2024 and maybe realized we're not going to have the same level of leadership. And I know, again, Terry, to give you full credit, you were really on that all season long, that you noticed that maybe they were just devoid of that throughout the course of the year. So, how much you can go looking for that will be interesting. You can go looking for leaders, and you can during the evaluation process, whether it's meeting with a player individually or meeting their parents or meeting their coaches or their teammates at other schools. I'm talking transfer portal now. You can certainly get a real good indication of whether or not, a guy is going to have those qualities coming in. And then it becomes, I think, a matter of how you attempt to balance the leadership issue with what is equally, if not more important in the grand scheme, and that's just your ability to play. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at a guy like Demetrius Knight or Torricelli Simpkins last year, two guys that we used as examples yesterday, and both of those guys had the leadership, but they could play. You look at D Knight now. D Knight's having a nice rookie season for Cincinnati, man. And so, they got to play. First and foremost, they got to be able to play, especially at this level. But where are the trade-offs if they have to be made, Terry, in terms of finding those guys? And do you maybe look for one here or there and balance it, in terms of just, well, this guy might not be as talented, but what he brings me in the intangibles is more important to us. I'll go find somebody else at the same position that maybe has more talent. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there hypothetically, but that still stands out to me as maybe the biggest thing yesterday is the realization from the head coach and his staff that that was going to be an issue. How much of one and how much of an impact it had may still be in the eye of the beholder, but I do think it's something they're going to want to fix for 26.
Yeah, and to your point, look, Boaz Stanley came in through the portal, right? I mean, another guy. Yeah. He was a grown man and is working to his mid-20s or whatever, had a family, all those things like Demetrius Knight, right? All that stuff. Had a cool first name, but he struggled. He struggled last year, and at one point he was benched, and it's hard to lead when you're struggling on the field. It just is. It's just very difficult. Think about any of the sports you played growing up on any level, and, you, or listener, anyone, guys that were struggling on the field couldn't walk in and start leading because you go like, shut up, you stink. It's just human nature. Yeah. So it's like you didn't have that combination of like a Demetrius Knight or a Kyle Kennard, Rocket Sanders, Josh Simon, all the defensive linemen, guys who were holding their own on the field and contributing, and then they could walk in and lead, right? This past year, you didn't have that sweet spot combination of veteran guy really playing well and then natural leader. And that was the thing you were missing. And look, your two best players weren't vocal alpha guys. Not to say they didn't lead by example, but they weren't those alpha dogs. I mean, Lenore Sellers and Dylan Stewart aren't getting in people's faces on the sideline. They're not, right. They're just not that guy. Like that A&M game. Do you remember when A&M's down by a ton and Marcel Reed pulled the offense together and he started just like, I'm not saying yelling at them, but just passionately, going at it and talking. They finally scored that touchdown. He's like, basically, look, we got this now. Let's go. And he is alpha dogging, right? But you look at the South Carolina sideline, and Ryan Brewer brought this up to us. He's always looked at the sideline. You didn't see those moments in the past year for the Gamecocks. They just didn't have those kind of guys who were those type of players they had the year before who could alpha dog lead this team when it needed it the most. And it needed at times, Jay, that they just weren't there to get it, and that really hurt them.
Yeah, and we've talked about this for, I say you and I have, but I mean anybody that follows sports, you mentioned this yesterday that you can't really make someone into a vocal leader if it's not part of their DNA. Right. But at the same time, I would be curious in this offseason, provided that as we expect that Lenora Sellers comes back, that maybe there are conversations with Lenoris about where he could pick and choose some of those moments. And sometimes, like a lot of things in life, there's a first time for everything where, you do just realize maybe I got to go do something about this, not just think about doing it and get in somebody. And again, like you say, you're not having to be there to bless them out. This is not, the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket kind
right.
of thing. You don't have to be that guy.
Right.
But that you do actually show that passion, that you show that leadership, that you show that that commitment, and that you do your best to stress to others around you how important it is. And maybe there is every leader at some point had to have that first talk, for the first time somewhere along the way. So while you maybe can't just turn somebody into that, again, as we said, for a quarterback especially, by default, you got to be that guy sometimes. And let's see if that's part in this offseason of Lenoris's maturity.
All right, we'll come back and continue this conversation. I want to pick up right where you that what you said there. I want to hit you with something on the other side of the break. And there was one other thing that I took from that conversation. Somebody asked me, and I want to throw this question out to you. So we'll do that coming back. Post-game show, Jay Phillips, Terry Ford, Brad Muller, bottom of the hour. We'll talk some women's hoops with our buddy Brad. That's coming up here on the post-game show in the game. We're kind of yipping about our conversation with South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer yesterday here on the postgame show. All right, you brought up something really interesting.
Who gets up before his kids do on Christmas?
Yeah, but by the way, how funny is that? The man who gets up before his kids.
Yeah.
I was not that man. Will not lie.
Nope.
Nope, not at all.
I'm still not.
Same here. No, thank you. All right, so you brought up a very interesting point about Linares. And again, he's never going to be Demetrius Knight or some alpha dog or Ray Lewis or whoever, because that's not his personality, right? And you can't make people what they're not, because then they come off phony. And that, when you think of, man, great leaders, you never say, yeah, what a great phony. It just doesn't work, right? But to what you said, Linares, as he matures, and maybe in this offseason, I don't know if we're going to get all philosophical and say, after some reflection, maybe it is more, maybe I need to be more vocal in my way, in my personality that fits me. I'm a soft-spoken guy, but maybe in my way, when something needs to be said, maybe I need to say it in my natural personality. Maybe he grows to that level of doing that more often or doing that at all. And maybe, because again, he gets older, Jay. You start to mature. I mean, right now he's a leader by example for the great things he does on the field and his work ethic and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But again, it'll be your third year, right? So now that you're in your third year as a starter, maybe you take more, maybe the word I'm looking for is ownership. Maybe you take more ownership of things. And in his natural way that fits his personality, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I think you can, look, it doesn't have to be like we said. You don't have to lead or get in somebody's face, like a drill sergeant or some awful teacher in some movie that everybody hates and becomes the villain. I mean, sometimes, Terry, it might just take a look, just a quick glance at somebody with a serious like, hey man, come on,
right?
Or just a little clap of the hands, right? Like, hey, seriously, let's we can do better next time. Here's what I'm talking about. There are ways to show that. And I'm with you. If somebody tries to do that and nobody's buying it, then all they're doing is rolling their eyes, and just they're still gonna, be doing whatever they were doing that maybe screwed something up in the first place, or just not care about whatever the person's telling them. So, and I don't think that's going to be I don't think that's an issue for Linares Sellers. I think there's no question in all the conversations I've had over the last couple of seasons about Linares. There is every reason to believe that he has the full respect and attention of his teammates, but again, he might not be that guy who is super vocal, loud, angry when things go wrong and wants to get everything corrected like right then. But there are ways to do that. So I think that it's like a lot of us, that'll be part of the learning curve for a guy like that. But I do think it's something that comes along this season, and I think those are conversations that can be had with coaches, with teammates, and maybe even with others in the sport, guys that have come before him that are older, maybe even talking to, his high school coach or somebody, and I'm just using that as an example, but somebody who is leading and, hey, what more do you think I could do? Ask advice, ask those questions, and then try to put that into practice.
Yeah, and you don't want to be the guy from Full Metal Jacket. We knew how that ended up.
Yeah, that didn't go well for him.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. If you don't believe it's just fast.
And the good news is that's not going to happen to Linares.
Not at all. If you don't, we're talking about fast forward to the last, how many minutes you think?
Well, I would tell people to watch Full Metal Jacket at least once.
It's a
thing, man.
It's a thing. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's two movies in one, but
yes, it is.
But it's worth your time once to.
Yeah,
it is.
I will say this: if you're looking for a gut slapping good time, don't watch Full Metal Jacket.
No, that's not Full Metal Jacket.
No, it's not.
No.
All right,
no, but it is worth your time.
The other thing someone asked me this, and I want to throw this at you, and then I'll give you my answer. Someone asked me about. They said, "Oh, this Kendall Browse hire is great, wonderful, love this," and they said, "Do you think Kendall Browse gets hired if Jeremiah Donati is not the athletic director?"
Who? Yes, I do. I do. I like I say, I think that particular facet of this is something that made it go that much smoother. That's my opinion, and that's what you're asking right now. You're asking my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Shane and let's just, for an example, let's just say Ray Tanner is still the athletics director and Shane wants to hire Kendall Briles. Ray and let's say Jeff Crane is the football administrator, which he is. So let's say that instead of Jeremiah, who had previously hired Kendall in Fort Worth, let's say that it's Ray and Jeff and Shane. They can sit down and have those conversations. Now, there may be a longer vetting process. There may be more conversations that Ray would need to have potential, and I'm just throwing this out, so I don't know these things. We're being hypothetical with Dr. Amaritas, with maybe some board members, that Shane may need to talk to some board members, that there may need to be some questions asked about exactly how comfortable they are with some of the things that Kendall was associated with many years ago, and make sure that those things don't find a way to attach themselves to your university. And when you see that they didn't attach themselves in any way at all to Arkansas, in any way at all when Kendall was with Lane at FAU, in any way at all at Texas Christian, you would feel good about it. Again, the bonus is that Jeremiah was the AD at TCU. So that I think that sped things along, and maybe sped things along, not to cover it up, Terry, not to blow past it. I don't mean it that way, but simply, hey, trust me, Dr. Amaritas, trust me, Thad Westbrook, trust me, board members, other board members. I've dealt with this guy. I will put my reputation as your athletics director, whom you hired last year, on the line to say I feel 100% about this guy. So yeah, but I think if Jeremiah weren't here, I still think the hire could have and most likely would have been made.
See, I'm glad we did this because I interpreted this guy's question a totally different way than you did. So this is good. I took it as, without Jeremiah Donati here, does Shane Beamer go after Kendall Briles, or does Kendall Briles go on his radar as much as?
So you mean it from a financial standpoint?
No,
perhaps?
I mean from the idea of, would Shane have been going after Kendall Briles? How much did Jeremiah Donati help steer Shane into talking to Briles? Because he remember.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I took it that way. You took it. I'm not saying your way was good, because I never thought of your way. So I'm glad you had your thought. I said to the person, I said, look, here's what we don't know. We don't know how much Kendall Briles wanted to leave TCU. That we don't know. We don't know, did he get tired of hearing about he's a Baylor guy at TCU? The constant, stuff about that, the stuff about what happened with his family at TCU, because, again, that's a whole different vibe when you're talking about rivals. Every little thing he did was criticized from people who didn't like him because he was a Baylor guy. Sonny Dykes, what hot seat is Dykes on for real? All these other things. I said, I don't know. I don't know if Kendall Briles' agent was out shopping Kendall Briles in the back channels. I said, so I can't answer that. I don't know. I do know, yes, Jeremiah Donati was the AD at TCU when Kendall Briles was there and was hired. Yes. Could Donati help this thing along if Shane asked for the help? Sure. Could Donati have gone and said, hey, take a look at Kendall, but it's your job to hire him? Yeah. I said the unknown here is if you take Donati out of the mix, I don't know, does Kendall Briles reach out back channels to Shane and say, hey, you got an OC opening, I'd like to talk to you if you're interested? Though I just don't know. So that was my answer, is I wish I could give this person a firm, here's what I think. I said, but there's so many unknowns in this, I can't do that hypothetical, if that makes any sense. So that's where I went with it. You went a different direction, which was cool, because I didn't think of yours. That was good.
Yeah. Well, and again, there could be a third option in there. We'll come back around to it. But Brad's on the other side. So
let's get to Brad.
Hey, by the way, before we get to Brad, I want to say this. Brad has a piece today out about Gamecock baseball player Braylon Wimmer that I want people to hear Brad talk about, because it's an amazing story, and it's a very recent story. Yep. And Brad's going to tell us about that, too.
All right, that's coming up here on the postgame show. Our buddy Brad Muller, also the women, tomorrow night on our sister station, B106, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip against Florida. Not against South Florida. It's a post-game show, South Florida. Brad's coming up next. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford, post-game show. Tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip against South Florida on our sister station, B1067. The women will get the guy, the voice. Really, I guess the architect of South Carolina basketball in general. Men, women, doesn't matter. Our buddy Brad Muller. What's up, man?
Definitely not the architect. I'm just the one along for the ride that gets to watch.
Brad, interesting. The Gamecocks heading to Tampa. This is I know Dawn likes to take things on the road. South Florida doesn't necessarily seem like the kind of school that gets a return visit from Carolina. What can you tell us about why it was important for Dawn to have a deal to play the Bulls a few times, but have a game down in Tampa?
Well, I think part of it is they're an NCAA tournament team most of the year, so it gives you another game against a team that's probably going to play in the postseason. And they do things a little differently than a lot of other teams with a lot of movement, a lot of ball screens and action like that maybe you're not going to see from a whole lot of teams. So it helps prepare you for later in the season, whether it's in SEC play or in the NCAA tournament, to face someone that's going to run something a little differently and have success with it. And that's what South Florida has done. They've got a new head coach, an interim head coach who's a longtime assistant, as their longtime head coach, Jose Fernandez, left after 25 years to coach in the WNBA. He left in October. And so they run the same kind of thing, though. Lots of ball screen action, and they've had a lot of success with it. Again, they're a perennial NCAA tournament team, so it's just a good matchup. And then that was the big reason with getting South Florida, and then getting Florida Gulf Coast on the same trip was you needed a game. You needed a game, and we were down here. And they needed a game, and all right, it worked out. We're only about an hour away from them, so we'll hit the road tonight after the game and go down to Fort Myers and get ready for that one on Saturday.
Brad, when we look at this basketball team, we talk about the transfer portal with Latson and Okot. You got Edwards hitting 20 a game. Raven Johnson, her assist to turnover ratio is insane. 6.5 assists, turnover and a half a game. She's hitting threes. We don't talk about Tessa Johnson enough, man. She is quietly having a very nice season, and she's really improved some of the aspects of her game from when she first showed up as a freshman. Give Tessa a little love, man.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you've seen her since her freshman year, you knew she was a very good perimeter shooter. She's been that since she got on campus as a very, terrific shot. But she's improved in all areas of her game. She's been very good off the dribble, driving to the basket. She's done that a lot more in the last year and a half, and has gotten a lot of success with that. So you can't just play her as a three-point shooter, and she'll get herself to the line or get herself some good mid-range opportunities. And her defense has gotten a lot better as well. Again, it's not, in years past, sometimes when you have a three-point shooter, that's all you get. You don't get anything on the other side of the ball, and she's defended well. And, to top it off, in just 2.5 years, she's now a graduate of the university. She has her degree. She walked in graduation last week. So she's got a lot going on and off the court. So kudos to her and Miriam Dowda for getting their degrees earlier this week.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't you graduate in like a year and a half, Brad?
I was on the 4 years and 2 summer plan.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Might have something like that for somebody around here who will remain nameless. No, Tessa is having a heck of a year. Brad Muller with us, the voice of Carolina women's basketball, Gamecocks, and the USF Bulls tonight. Brad, you tell us, you see them every day. It feels like this team, look, they're still deep and obviously very talented, but yeah, and everybody that plays is averaging double-digit minutes, so they're getting their time. But does it, to you, feel like the way Dawn is rotating players, that there is a higher dependence upon a starting five than we are typically seeing from her, especially in a non-con part of the schedule?
Absolutely. With only 10 players on the roster this year, when you had before the season started, you found out Ashlyn Watkins wasn't coming back, and then you lose Chloe Kitts a month before the season. So you go from 12 to 10. The starters are having to play a lot more minutes, and the way things have gone this year, there's been very few games where all 10 have been active for the game, whether it was the suspension of Maddie McDaniel for a few games early in the season, or the injuries or illnesses that they've had with Agat McKeer and Medina Okot and whomever else. There's been very few games where they've had 10 players. In years past, you're right. The Gamecocks had that second wave where that second five, there was no loss of production. They've got good players coming off the bench, but some of them, aren't as productive as the starters. So, as we've seen in years past, so they've, been more dependent on always having 1, 2, 3 of the starters back in there when they do go to their bench instead of just, doing a full line change like they had the luxury of doing the last, 3 to 5 years.
And on that note, Brad, do you anticipate that this is more a matter of bringing bench players up to speed before conference play, or do you feel like this becomes, for lack of a better way for me to ask it, a more traditional rotation of starters with supplemental minutes from the bench rather than a lot of times those more equal minutes that you just alluded to?
I think she really wants to get more out of those bench players, as much as she can, so you don't wear down the legs when you get to NCAA tournament time. Because, again, with all the talent South Carolina has had in years past, one of the keys has been their depth, where they can wear teams that are equally as talented, let's say, in the starting five. You wear those teams down. But if both teams are just throwing, their starting five at you for most of the game, then you just never know. So I think she really wants to get, especially, the freshmen, you want to get Isla McDowell and McKeer going so that they feel comfortable in conference play. Every player that's come off the bench has shown signs that they can be contributors. Now you just want to see it on a more day in, day out basis. You weren't sure if you were going to get much from Adele Tack this year. She's the 6'5" sophomore post that had come off several knee injuries and wasn't being very productive. And then a few games ago, she had her first career double-double. And you go, okay, that's what we've been waiting for. Mm. So I think coach is really hoping that they're going to be able to play all 10 every game. Maybe not like what we did in years past where it was a split when you had, players off the bench playing 20 minutes a game, but more so that, okay, we're going to have all these bench players play anywhere between 10 and 15 because some of those older players that, maybe have nagging things, not so much injuries, but just nagging things, you don't want to wear them down when you get to March. You want people like Tanai Latson and Raven Johnson to have fresh legs once you get to March.
Brad, before we get you out of here, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I know you could take a lot longer, but you've got a terrific piece. You steered me to it, and it's now up front on GamecocksOnline.com about Braylon Wimmer and an incredibly scary situation that he and his family just discovered, about a month ago. Take us through what you learned and how he's coming through that.
Yeah, and I think most folks know from some of the other shows you guys had on there, part of Braylon's story where, he was in the Arizona Fall Baseball League and basically was having a medical episode, and they found out he had a brain tumor, a mass by his left ear, and they did surgery to remove it. He was awake during the surgery, which was just mind-boggling to me as he told me that. And he said they think they were able to remove most, if not all of it. He's still waiting on the pathology to see what his next course of action is, if they didn't get all of it, if what kind of treatment he would have to do and what, the prognosis is. So, it's still a little bit up in the air, but the crazy thing is, a couple of weeks after that, he had some complication, or a few days after that, he had some complications, because it affected his ability to speak and to hear and some other things. But a couple of weeks after that, he's hitting baseballs again. He's trying to make a major league roster, and his plan is to, be at spring training in February. So more power to him. And just, for those that don't know, you can go check out the story at GamecocksOnline.com and certainly say prayers that the pathology comes back and, that they got it all. Because this is a 24-year-old kid who he's not afraid to admit he's a little bit scared about, what has happened to him. And, it's hard not to get emotional. Fans saw him here for 4 years. He's a good kid, and he's just trying to live his life. And, pardon the pun, but he's been thrown a curveball, and hopefully he comes out of it and everything's going to be okay. But, it's heartbreaking that someone that young has to go through something like that.
Yeah, we're pulling for him, and it is a heck of a story. Great work as you do with so many of these features, in addition to the great work that you do on the call. Have fun tonight, and, try to enjoy Fort Myers, all right? I know that's going to be hard.
It's going to be tough, Brad.
It's hard, but somebody's got to do it. I'm just,
somebody does.
I'm here for the team.
He's Brad Muller, SC Brad 92, Gamecocks and the USF Bulls tonight. Thank you, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right, post-game show, Jay or nay, next. Post-game show. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford. Appreciate you hanging out as we roll up until 6 o'clock again. Tonight here on the game, we have Carolina calls with men's head coach LePont Paris and Derek Scott. That's 7 o'clock on the game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. On our sister station, B106, we will be carrying women's basketball as the third-ranked Gamecock women will travel to South Florida. That, again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip. You know, I could suffer, do a little Fort Myers action myself.
Yeah, Tampa tonight, Fort Myers on Saturday.
I could do that.
That's rough.
Yeah, I could. I won't lie to you. I've been to Tampa. I've never been to Fort Myers, though.
That whole, way down there, man, too. Fort Myers is pretty far. I mean, I think that's a good 2 hours more south of Tampa, maybe even farther. It's down there, man. It's warm. They don't have seasons.
No, they have
do.
one. They have a season.
They have nice.
Yeah.
They have nice, and they have hot.
Yeah, but I could suffer. I could suffer. Yeah, I could.
Yeah.
Break my arm.
No, I went to school with a guy who grew up in Fort Myers and then lived up here, and it's different. So it's still hot here. It's just not. There's no Gulf of Mexico out there.
No.
We have Lake Murray.
No.
It's close.
The Gulf of Mexico, Lake Murray, absolutely.
It's close.
Absolutely.
Hey, by the way, real quick, I want to give a shout out, Terry, before you do Jay or Nay with me. I want to give a shout out to our very good friend Ben Cato. Ben came to see me today. Ben knows, I've been going through some things, but I called him about a power equipment question. And because, again, I have all this firewood, but I need to split this wood because the guys that are cutting my trees down, if you didn't hear that part, I've got 2 big oak trees that had to come down in my yard because they're dying, sadly. So I have all this firewood. And my guy, Ben Cato, looked out for me. He's going to let me borrow a really nice steel chainsaw all weekend. So hopefully I talk to you on Monday because I have not injured myself with the chainsaw that I'm going to borrow from Ben. But he showed me how to use it. I've used chainsaws before, but this one's nice. But again, going the extra mile. My good friend Ben Cato, Cato's Power Equipment.
Our buddy Ben Cato. Thumbs up to Ben. If you wanted to learn how to use a chainsaw, there's a YouTube video called Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Sure.
So just watch that and then go have at it in the yard.
Sure.
Just trying to help. Always here to help. Here to mentor. Here to help.
Yeah, that movie, man, you know who hacks me off in that movie? It's not even Leatherface. It's those old ladies in the kitchen.
You're a little weird.
Yeah, I just want to, I don't like them.
Yeah, a little strange. There are a lot of strange things in that movie. But
there are.
Had a Leatherface.
That whole scene, I'm like, really? This is what we're doing? Anyway.
All right.
Sorry.
Jay or nay? Kevin Warren, the grand poobah of the Chicago Bears, has talked about possibly moving the Bears to Gary, Indiana by building a stadium in Gary, Indiana outside of Chicago. Jay or nay, we'll be watching the Gary, Indiana Bears in a few years, Jay.
Nay. No. And it's crazy because if you haven't heard this story yet, Kevin Warren wrote an open letter to season ticket holders and Bears fans saying that we've explored all our avenues in Cook County and in the city of Chicago, and we haven't gotten everything we want. So we're going to now explore opportunities in Indiana. And then they put it in the letter, Terry, but it's not about leverage. And it's like, dude, when you put in the letter that it's not about leverage, you're admitting to God and everybody that it is 100% leverage. It's a leverage play. But I don't see lawmakers in Indiana. Now, maybe the county that Gary is in is different from any state legislator or legislative issues in Indiana, but I don't see the state of Indiana going, you want us to support a second NFL team? Like, I don't think we're going to be doing that right now. So the Bears will remain in Chicagoland, in the Illinois portion of Chicagoland.
Yes, absolutely. All right, good news here. Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua have both made weight for the big fight Friday night on Netflix. Will Jay Phillips be in front of his TV with his favorite beverage and a big thing of popcorn watching Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, Jay or nay?
Nay. Sorry. Not even close.
That might have been your shortest J.
I may be in front of my
ever.
TV. I may be in front of my TV, but I won't be watching that.
We'll talk college football playoffs next. All right, hour 2 of the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford here on the game. And again, tonight, 7 o'clock, Carolina calls on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia and 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And speaking of Myrtle Beach, Jay Phillips.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning.
I've been there.
I've seen the police report. 6 to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning at the Myrtle Beach Bowl at the campus of Coastal Carolina. Former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, Jen Jensen, Mike Uva, and a host of others. Chance Miller, possibly the new head football coach. We got a lot to do tomorrow at Conway at the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Early game, 6 to 9 a.m. They are on their way down there now.
All right. Well, you better hope they actually make it to air, Ter. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, well, you know what, ready? I have a ton of confidence in the, mature married man with a child, Preston Thorne.
The married parents of the show. Yes,
yeah, I got a lot of confidence in Jen Jensen, a mother of multiple children who's been married to a fine man named Darren for many, many years. I have confidence in both of those to post up. The young, not as much long hair, he got it cut off. Dude wearing the hippie clothes, who's never turned down a beer, that guy concerns me. That guy.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since you said it.
If you and I were dropping bets on who doesn't post,
he'll make it.
Oh,
He's
will.
a pro.
He will.
He's a pro.
Now again, it might be one of those. He made it.
Yeah, I'm alive. Hey.
Hey, sometimes it isn't how you make it; it's just you make it. Correct?
I don't know the current hot spots of Myrtle Beach anymore. I'll be perfectly honest with you. So I used to go to places that are a long way from the coastal campus. We had fun up on Restaurant Row a lot. Spanish Galleon was always a fun place to go hang out. But now they got all that stuff at Broadway at the beach and the old Air Force Base and stuff that's a little closer to Conway, where you can just kind of hit the bypass and hit 501 and make it to campus in about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that could make it easier if he's out till, say, 3. Just get an Uber down to campus, take a nap, you'll be fine.
I was going to say, you can sleep in the game truck.
Yeah,
he's all right.
I used to have fun. If you're of a certain age, around mine, you might remember having fun on certain nights up there, Spanish Galleon, seeing the Voltage Brothers. What a band they are. They're still around, the Voltage Brothers. Maybe a few new members, but man, those are some good times, Terry Ford. That's all I'll say about that. Good
all
time.
right, so hopefully Elijah Campbell will join Preston Thorne and Jen Jensen tomorrow from the Coastal Campus, 6 to 9 a.m. at the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Hamburger Joe's was fun. Hamburger Joe's. We had a lot of fun there. My buddy Chris and I would go there a lot and have fun. Will Hedgepath, my buddy Will, we'd had good times at Hamburger Joe's as well. So just a couple places.
Very nice. And you know what I always say about those times when you and I were running around doing all that craziness? Thank God I didn't have a cell phone with video camera capability. I'll just leave it at that. We'll just stop there.
That's fair.
Stop there.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Back then, nobody was videotaping the felonies.
Or committing them because there's no proof.
That's right.
Yeah.
All
what
right,
does Bart Simpson say? Nobody saw me do it. Can't prove anything.
Hey, the Ford family crest says if no one saw it, it ain't illegal.
Yeah, that's right.
Just saying. We leave it there.
Or like George Costanza. Remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
That's right. All right, my man. A college football playoff obviously gets underway tomorrow night with Bama traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. But
who you got there?
Go ahead.
Who you got?
I'm taking Bama. I'll say this.
Right.
Here's why. First of all, I won't even go with the whole everybody's on Oklahoma's bandwagon. Alabama, they can't run the ball. They've been playing terrible the last few weeks.
Neither one of these teams can run.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that. Oklahoma can't run either, and the Oklahoma offense, since John Mateer came back from that injury, it's not the same offense.
It's not. I agree.
I look at it this way. Alabama almost doubled total yards against Oklahoma in the game in Tuscaloosa. Alabama moved up and down the field. They just kept shooting themselves in the feet. Their special teams was a wreck. They turned the ball over. Remember the pick six? They really.
I'll say Oklahoma's defense had a little something to do with it, but I don't disagree with your overall premise.
I think that as good as and Oklahoma's defense is one of the best in America.
Yep.
But I will say this: if Oklahoma, the way the Oklahoma offense has been playing for almost 2 months now since Mateer came back, the Oklahoma offense needs help. They got to get turnovers from the defense. They got to get big plays from the special teams, or an occasional big play in the passing game. That offense is not all that. I think Alabama's defense is good. I think their offense is better than Oklahoma's. And if Alabama stays out of shooting themselves in the feet again, I think they win a very close, come right down to the wire football game in Norman. That's just me.
All right.
Where are you at?
I'm still torn on this one. There's part of me that just wants to take Oklahoma because it's in Norman, but I think the things you laid out, and I think Ty Simpson, who did not look good against Georgia, is still playing better football than John Mateer. I agree. Mateer has not been the same, and maybe a couple of weeks for him to further heal and rehabilitate and be at home will pay some dividends tomorrow night. But there are reasons that Alabama is the favorite. So I think for now I'm leaning Alabama. I won't promise that tomorrow once we play the showdown that I don't change my mind. But I think what are we, Alabama -1 still?
Yeah,
so it's basically a pick 'em.
Yeah, look, man, if Oklahoma would win, I wouldn't go, wow, didn't see that coming. I'll say this too about it. Alabama looks so bad in the SEC championship game, and that's the last thing we've seen, and we just take that with us, which is human nature. But remember this, one of these head coaches has head coached a team to the championship game.
Right.
And one hasn't as a head coach.
Right.
I don't know how much that's going to mean, but it could mean something, just saying.
Yeah, well, it could, and not only a national championship game, but but into a conference championship game. And Brent Venables certainly has his experience with Clemson in big moments, so I'll give him that. And he's even before then at Oklahoma, they were in all kinds of Big 12 championship games, so he's certainly seen
But it's one thing to be a coordinator. It's one thing to be the head coach.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. So.
I want to throw something at you that I've been hearing a lot of this, and I want to get your thought before I blab on mine. I've heard a lot. First of all, there's so many people who are hacked off that Tulane and James Madison both are in the playoff. I mean, it's like, seriously, get a hobby.
Including Nick Saban, who
I know
did not hold back on Pat McAfee's show.
I know, and look. I'm trying to not take this from the college basketball perspective because college basketball and college football are two different animals. But I've heard this. If Tulane and James Madison both get their doors blown off, which a lot of people think they will, this will hurt the group of five. Forget multiple teams, but getting a seat at the table eventually when this thing becomes what it's going to be down the road, the group of five could get shut out. So these two games are very important to the group of five to at least make them close. What do you think?
I get that point of view. I don't know if I fully subscribe to it. I think you make a point too that I want to make about the basketball analogy, or even since this is a baseball town, a college baseball town, the baseball tournament. Look, in opening rounds, unfortunately, while we do have the upsets from time to time, let's face it, the vast majority of the time, what do we see? Not only do we see lower-seeded teams get beat, we probably see them get beat. And that may well happen on Saturday night. Does it hurt the group of five? I don't know, Terry, because I think, look, there's a couple of things here to look at. Next year, if we don't go to 16, the odds are a lot. Look, I think the G5 has to have one, right? That's part of the agreement.
Right.
But I don't think we'll see them get two again. This year, look, you can make a case that Duke or some Notre Dame, whatever, should Duke have gotten in as a winner? Maybe. Probably. I don't think they should have.
I don't think so either.
But should Notre Dame be in over James Madison or Tulane? I think that's a more nuanced discussion.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, I think Notre Dame should be in this field. That's
if we were going by that, yeah. I mean, and look, if you and I were sitting here being objective, okay, Notre Dame, James Madison, we're going to take Notre Dame. We just are.
Yeah.
It's just
but again, 5 highest ranked and whatever else, and an ACC school didn't make it, so here we are. Okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they're going to change. They're going to tweak that next year to where the P4 champions are going to find a way in. Again, if it stays at 12, Notre Dame's going to be in if they're ranked within the top 12.
Yep.
So, again, we'll see some things change. I don't think it really – look, let's go to the Nick Saban thing that I mentioned so people know what we're talking about there. Nick Saban went on Pat McAfee, and I know the analogy he was making. Whether people fully agree with this or not, that's up to you as a fan. But Nick Saban basically said, would we have the winner of the International League, AAA, would we have the winner of the International League be invited into the Major League Baseball playoffs? And then I saw some pushback to say, well, they're all FBS. Okay, well, Terry, you know me and the conversations that we have had on air, off air about how I feel. I have full respect for the football that is played in the Group of 5 level. But they're not power schools. They're not Power 4 schools. They don't have the budgets. They don't have the rosters. They got some great coaches. They got some great players. They got some guys that can transfer and move up and become stars. I love the football that they play, but we're not looking at equals. I mean, heck, we could make a case, and I don't want to veer too far off. The New York Yankees and the Athletics, whatever city they play in, are both Major League Baseball teams. But does anybody look at them as equals?
No,
Seriously.
of course not.
Does anybody look at them as equals? No, of course you don't. So I just think look, these schools and conferences, the Group of 5 conferences needed to sign on. This was a way to get it done to dare I say, and I don't mean this, it's going to sound harsh, to placate them. Look, I love the James Madison story. I wanted James Madison to have more of an opportunity a couple of years ago when they joined FBS. Remember that? And they were like, well, you have to wait a year. I'm like, what kind of stupid rule is that?
Ridiculous.
Like, if you win your games, you win your games. Why are you making them wait? That seems dumb. But anyway, they did, whatever. And but now here's James Madison. Look, I hope they make it a game, Terry, but I don't think overall, to answer your question, I don't think it harms their reputation any. Most college football fans have already formed their reputations. Should James Madison or Tulane, go in and keep a game close in the fourth quarter, is that really going to take the mindset of an SEC or Big Ten fan or a Clemson fan or a whomever fan, a Southern Cal fan, and go, hey, man, I thought they kind of stunk, but now I realize they're pretty good. No, you'll just say, what a good game that was. I mean, does anybody feel a whole lot different about Maryland, Baltimore County when they beat Virginia?
Right.
They're still going to see Maryland, Baltimore County and go, that was a hell of a story, but they couldn't hang in the ACC every week.
Right. And I think that, look, there's a thing with me. I love the underdog. I love those stories. I love to see everybody have a shot to be included. That's just me. I always have rooted for that team in my life.
Yeah,
but
because it's a fun sports story. That's fun.
Because that's what makes it interesting and that's what makes it compelling. Look, unless the Group of 5 is all going to run off together and make their own championship and all that stuff, which they want to do that, then, go for it. I think you should have a Group of 5 school in this playoff. I just do. I think, at the end of the day, we know that the Group of 5 is a different animal than the power conferences. We get it. We understand. I just think you give what's one spot in a 12-team playoff or what's one spot in a 16-team playoff. You're going to tell me that team that gets that spot was going to do a hell of a lot better? Like you said, a lot of times there's blowouts anyway, right? Look, we saw blowouts last year that weren't about the Group of 5. So, right. I just like it warms my heart to see one get in. I know that multiple ones will probably never happen again, but to try to make a case to shut them all out, I don't want to go down that road. I like giving them one.
Either.
I like giving them one.
Especially in a 16, and we're going to 16. Maybe we don't go next year. I don't know, but yeah, I'm fine with it. And look, one day one of those teams will win a game, Terry.
Yep.
One day they will.
Absolutely, no doubt. So I get what Nick's saying, but man, one's not killing anybody. One's not killing anybody. You got one more in you, or is it nap time?
I do. Let's go one more.
What do you want to talk about next, sir?
A couple of college football things that are out there. We saw a couple of playoff things, but also some of this Michigan mess is continuing to puzzle me.
All right, we'll get to that next. Jay Phillips for another segment with us. Terry Ford. It's a post-game show here on the game. Dr. Dan, the folks at the Men's Clinic, 803-875-MENS. Look, they have been helping men for a good long time now. Kind of get you back to feeling like you again. Whether it's you're just not as strong at the gym as you used to be, you don't bounce back from exercise and working out like you used to, you don't remember things like you did back in the day, you're not sleeping as well, you have a lack of drive in life, whether it's living room, bedroom, kitchen, whatever, pick a room, boardroom. You're not you. And it could be low testosterone, there could be some other issues. Let the Men's Clinic find out for you. Call 803-875-MENS. You make that call, you set up a free consultation, confidential consultation, tell them your story. They'll do a free testosterone test, or you could just be low T, or whatever the case may be. They'll talk with you through it and put you on a program specifically designed for you to get you back being you again. 803-875-MENS, the Men's Clinic. Talking some college football and college football playoff here on the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford. Tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on our sister station, B1067. The Gamecock women, number 3 ranked team in the country, will travel to South Florida. Again, you can hear that on our sister station, B106.7. All right, so you wanted to hit this mess that is Michigan football.
Yeah, well, a couple things real quick before we do that. I just because I won't be here for our typical drive around the SEC, Terry. So you and I were mentioning this briefly off air when we were talking to plan the show. But if y'all haven't heard yet, Bo Prabula is going to transfer out of Missouri, and you and I were kind of scratching our head on that one. He had an okay year. He had too many turnovers, 9 interceptions, but he got hurt for a couple of games, but he accounted for nearly 2,300 total yards and 17 touchdowns and completed 2 out of every 3 passes he threw. I don't know if Sam Horn, who was their starter going into the season, he got injured. Is he the guy? I forget the freshman kid's name. I apologize, but the kid who came in for Prabula when he went down was not good, and that really hurt Missouri. I don't know if he's their future, but I just don't know that a guy like and I don't know if Prabula sees any writing on the wall. Maybe Eli Drinkwitz, and we'll kind of blend this with the Michigan story. If Eli Drinkwitz, I know he got a new deal, but let's face it, Terry, any deal can be renegotiated or torn up. And I got a hunch if Michigan doesn't get their first choice, which I think is Kenny Dillingham, then, do they come for Eli Drinkwitz? Anyway, but for Prabula, was he told something? Again, you gotta clean up the interceptions, and that's an easy fix. It's certainly an easy thing to point to fix. It might not be an easy fix, but otherwise, like I say, in a not complete season, 2,300 yards, he can run. That's 2,300 total offensive yards, and accounted for 17 touchdowns and 67+% completion rate. That's pretty good, man. I mean, again, 9 interceptions is too many. But other than that, I'm not sure exactly what it is that is happening up in Como.
And you feel like another year in that system, he gets even better. That would be your thought. Remember, he didn't start games at Penn State. He was that situational quarterback they would bring in, and he would take off and run and stuff like that and affect the game with his legs. So, I mean, here's a guy that was really getting his first year as a starter, and your thought is year 2 in Eli's system – with the run game they always have, and you think that would be a no-brainer to stay. But I guess, you and I were just like speculating. Did he hear something? Is maybe Eli? Could he be on the move? Did basically,
or was there just an exit interview where hey, listen, we're still going to be looking at Sam as our number one, and we're in the portal for somebody, or maybe the kid, I don't know, maybe he didn't like living in Central Missouri and wants to get back east. I don't know. Yeah, there could be.
It could be something that easy, Jay, where it's like, look, we're going to let you compete for the job, but I'm not promising it to you. It could be something like that. Like you said, he could be like, you know what, I'm not really digging being here in Columbia, Missouri. I mean, I saw a couple other things after you and I talked in the conspiracy theory. Put on your tinfoil helmet world. James Franklin looking for a quarterback at Virginia Tech. Who did Prabula play for?
And knows Prabula, yeah. Why not?
That's out there. There's that thought he wanted more NIL money, and Missouri didn't want to go as far as maybe his people wanted them to go, so he's going to go back on the open market to see if he can get what his value could be. So I've seen look, we might not ever know. Or we'll find out in the mix what
Virginia
happens.
Tech, that'd be a good landing spot. That'd be a good landing spot. So he's only got 1 season left, but that'd be at least I think that's right.
I think it's 1 season. Yeah. Would be better to go back with Franklin.
That gets you back east. That gets you back east.
So we'll see. But it was a head scratcher when you and I talked about it today. We were both like, "Huh, really?"
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, as I said, we'll blend the story because I do just this Michigan thing, and by now most of you know that Michigan's launched an investigation with a big law firm out of Chicago into all kinds of practices within the athletics department. And I've been reading a lot about this because it is fascinating because it's Michigan, and we know Michigan was a mess. During the Harbaugh years, we know they won a title that didn't get taken from them. We know the Connor Stallion stuff. Now we see this Sharon Moore stuff, and by the way, more salacious things coming out about Coach Moore and this relationship that he had with his staffer. And look, it's going to be a he said, she said. I realize that. So, but there's a lot of bad in that, and no matter what may come of it, it's not a good look for the University of Michigan. And as we joked, Terry, and I don't mean to make light of too much, but I told you I put a meme out, a Pete Davidson thing. I don't see the problem here, and I was like referencing Ward Manuel when you had all this list of things. And then there's Ward Manuel putting out a statement a few months back, just touting how great everything was. And it's like Ward, these are not disputable opinions here. These are facts that have been looked at, investigated, with evidence and punishment handed down to your university. These are, so. And they have an interim president, Terry. So, you asked me today, like, who's going to make this hire? If Ward Manuel doesn't, is it an interim president? It's a great job. It's a fantastic academic institution. They got a lot of pride and tradition, but I don't know, man. Look, somebody will take that job because it's the University of Michigan football job. But who hires them and who comes in next? Do you have to fire Ward Manuel first? You can't wait much longer. Unless, to your point, you have Biff, what's his last, Pogge, whatever,
Biff
come in here,
Pogge's.
and is that the answer?
No offense to Biff, because I have a warm spot for Biff for what he did in Baltimore at St. Francis and things of that nature when he built that high school into a powerhouse. But it's like I'm just picturing Biff there with a cigar in one hand, whatever in the other hand, sleeveless shirt. Just coaching the sidelines at Michigan. It's a weird thing, Jay, because again, you're looking for a head coach. Your AD has turbulence swirling all around him. Do they want him to even make this hire?
No, they don't, Terry.
No.
I think, listen, everything I read between the lines and even some, on the lines. I think Michigan is looking for a way to get rid of Ward Manuel.
Well, think about this for a minute. All the things that have happened under his watch. And look, the whole place swept everything that Harbaugh did under the rug because Harbs was winning. You know how this goes when you're winning. But then you move Sharon Moore in there because you want to keep the continuity. And you look, this guy, the more you hear, the more you're like, oh, my God, did the word vet ever come up with anyone?
Well, what's the old gag about, man, you swept so much under the rug, and all of a sudden you're like, what am I tripping over?
Right. And that's what's happened. Michigan has gone face first on the rug. So all this stuff under Ward Manuel and some other things also in the athletic department, and all of a sudden the things you were letting go because Harbaugh was winning, you look at it and you go now and go, you know what? This AD let all this stuff go on. Why the hell are we keeping this guy around? And the best way to flush ugliness sometimes, Jay, is to do what? Push the AD out in front of it, and then start over with a new AD.
Yeah, so I don't know how quickly. Look, the investigations like this don't happen in a matter of days or even weeks. So, and I don't see Ward Manuel being the guy that goes, hey, you know what? But maybe if a little bit of stuff mounts, maybe you can get to Ward Manuel and say, hey, you want to gracefully exit here, and maybe we'll pay you half of what we owe you or something like that because otherwise this could get ugly. I don't know. But I don't see Michigan football being able to, and I use the word afford in a figurative sense, being able to afford a year of an interim coach, however, whatever character he might be, because this is, it's the Big Ten. You're always competing with Ohio State. You have an interim, a lame duck almost, if you will, Terry, in 2 recruiting cycles almost, and that includes portal recruiting. You don't need that. You don't need to fall that far behind. I know you could probably pick it right back up through portal recruiting, but in terms of Michigan, they like big programs. They develop a lot of high schoolers too, and you're missing out on some of that if you don't have somebody. Remember that was one of the things they said last month or a couple weeks ago rather. Oh, they waited to announce all this Sharon Moore stuff after they signed the class. Well, a bunch of these kids have already decommitted.
Right, and think about this real quick: is the idea that you're between a rock and a hard place because if you're not going if you're pushing Ward Manuel out, you got an interim president. Who the heck's going to make the hire for the football coach? So you got some issues going on here if you're in Ann Arbor.
That Barstool guy, what's his name? Portnoy.
Let him do it.
That guy. That'll work well.
Hey, him and Adam Schefter.
Yes,
baby.
I know Adam Schefter. Good Lord.
Yeah.
God, that thing the other day.
Man.
Oh my God.
All right, my friend. Hey, go get some rest. We'll do this again tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, we'll play the showdown tomorrow and have some playoff fun. Looking forward to it.
All right, good deal, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow, my friend. All right, we'll see you. Jay Phillips, post-game show. Come back, and we will continue this conversation about Michigan football and what direction they could go next. Our first check on the traffic this afternoon. We have an accident, Bush River Road at I-20. Also, Farrell Road at Hardscrabble. I-126 westbound at I-26. 77 northbound at Killian Road, exit 22. Sumter Street at Taylor. Also, Broad River Road at Greystone Boulevard. Woodland Hills Road at St. Andrews Road as well. Accident has been cleared. I-26 eastbound at St. Andrews Road. That is at exit 106. Come back, continue looking at the world of college football, the mess that is Michigan and the college football playoff. That's next here on the Postgame Show. All right, so we have a mess in Ann Arbor. We've been talking about Jay and I, and Jay will be back again tomorrow at 3. And just the point is, which direction? If you're Michigan, you have an interim president. If you're not letting your AD Ward Manuel make decisions or hire folks, and you're trying to push him out as well to be the fall guy for the mess that goes bigger than Ward Manuel, what do? Do you let an interim president hire your coach? Do you have an associate AD you feel good about at Michigan? Someone in the athletic director's office that you think could step up and take the reins, sort of like what LSU did? Do you have that at Michigan? Because you got to hire a head coach. You got to make it right. And Michigan football, they won a national championship recently, went to the college football playoff 3 straight years under Jim Harbaugh. And Michigan, was it roughly 22, 23 years before the last national championships when they won one? And Michigan's been a good program. They have winning records. They go to bowl games. They sprinkle in some really good years. I've always felt Michigan should be better than they are. I just do, because they're Michigan. And when you say, well, they're Michigan, you're like, man, they must have won a bunch of national championships. No, not really. They're a good program. I just always think they should be better. And look, yes, you have to deal with Michigan State in the state, another P4. You don't have the high school recruiting fertile ground that you have in Ohio, PA, the DMV, Florida, California, Texas, blah, blah, blah. Georgia, Louisiana. But you do have a ton of resources, a ton of alumni, gigantic campus. I just think you should be consistently better than you are. You should be better than, it's a good program. Or it's a pretty good program. You should be, wow, that's a top 7 program or whatever, a top 10 program. So I bring that up because now this hire is important. You want to keep Bryce Underwood, the quarterback. You want to keep some other folks on this roster. Again, your recruiting class, you're already losing some of those players because of this situation. So you got to get it right. And you got to get it right with an interim president and an AD. It seems like you do not want to give him the opportunity to hire another coach. So what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? It's going to be interesting. And again, the name Kenny Dillingham keeps coming up. Eli Drinkwitz has been mentioned a bit here lately. There's still some folks on the Kalen DeBoer bandwagon. If Alabama loses tomorrow night against Oklahoma. But you just got to get this thing right. Sharon Moore, I thought it was a head-scratching hire to begin with. I got the continuity part, how you wanted to, you wanted to keep that Harbaugh thing going, keep the recruits, keep the players, keep the culture in theory. But we see the mess this has become, and the more you hear about Sharon Moore, the more you go, so this was a good idea? Why? And I get the continuity piece, but I look at that because you hear that a lot when these coaching hires. Well, in the transfer portal era, you want to the next coach, if you can promote somebody, that way maybe you can keep all the players. They won't transfer. That might be okay for a year, right? Maybe 2 tops. But in the long run, is this the right coach? That's the question I always ask back. Okay, fine, for 1 year, because you don't want to lose anybody in the portal, you're going to promote this guy and make him the head coach. Well, what happens after this crew of players leaves? Can this guy sustain the success that the dude who's leaving has set him up with? I always think it's a legit question. I'm always like this. I think sometimes this hiring thing should be just this simple. Hire the best guy for the gig. That's it. That's it. Don't overthink the room. He's just the best guy for the job. And that's where you start. We want to hire the best possible coach for the gig. Now, again, different jobs have different ceilings, right, of who you can hire. But it's always are we hiring the best guy for the job? Michigan should have the pick of high-level coaches who want to go to Ann Arbor. But right now, with this mess that's going on, you got investigations, all these things. Could that make a Kenny Dillingham just pause for a second? I got it pretty good here. I'm at Arizona State, my alma mater, the school I love. Hey, Michigan's Michigan. But it seems like that's a bit of a mess. Same thing with Eli Drinkwitz. Or Kalen DeBoer. Look, I say this about Kalen DeBoer. There's a reason his name keeps popping up in these jobs. Just saying. I think when Kalen DeBoer says, I haven't talked to anybody, I believe him. But he didn't say this. My agent hasn't talked to anybody. You didn't hear that, did you? Nope. Didn't hear that quote. Is Kalen DeBoer tired about hearing the name Nick Saban? Probably. Is Kalen DeBoer tired of being held to a standard that is impossible almost to live up to? Yeah, maybe. But there's a reason that name's still out there. I don't think it's, I want to keep trying to get more money out of Alabama. To keep getting more money out of Alabama, you've got to achieve at a certain level that Kalen DeBoer hasn't gotten to yet at Alabama. So we'll see when the dust settles and clears on all this. And I also heard that, and this might be the reason why Kalen DeBoer's name is out there, there was a rumor that DeBoer's agent in Alabama could be having conversations about a contract extension. I guess my first question would be, why? You want to be at a certain level as a program. I get it. And I'm not even saying the Nick Saban level, but the level of competing for championships. That's now the bar at Alabama, competing for the national championship. Has Kalen DeBoer come close to that yet in less than 2 years? No. I wouldn't be giving out a contract extension. I'd be like, Kalen, if you're not happy, we won't hold you. Just remember, there's a buyout. Because I'm just not going to do it because Kalen DeBoer has not shown me at the University of Alabama he can get me to the level that I want to be at the bare minimum. Sniffing the college football playoff isn't it. Even getting into the college football playoff, to be quite honest, I mean, that's not it either. Look, I like the University of Washington. I used to hang out in the area of UW. Had a really cool pizza place with some excellent craft beer. UW is not Tuscaloosa, Alabama. There's a different expectation level. Look, they love Husky football in Seattle. But it's not to the level of religious belief that it is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And Washington has nowhere near had the success that Alabama has. So what Kalen DeBoer has done so far, that's not what the folks at Bama are looking for. They're looking for maybe not Nick. The sane people know that's hard to achieve, but you got to compete for championships, dude, and you haven't done it yet. So when your agent's blabbing about, other teams are interested. Okay, go have a talk. Go for it. If you don't want to be here, okay. What's that saying my uncle used to go? Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, boy. So we will see where it ends up in Michigan and who gets that job. Very interesting. All right, time to crack open the vault next here on the postgame show. Do not forget, tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on our sister station, B1067. The women travel to face South Florida. Again, that's on our sister station, B106, with Brad Muller and Ed Bird punching the buttons. Come back, look at the vault, crack it open next on the postgame show here on The Game. Time to pop the vault. Sponsored by Purple Wave Auctions. We'll start off with today in sports history. On this day, in 1983, Edmonton Oiler Wayne Gretzky scored his 100th point of the season. Gretzky got to 100 points faster than any player in NHL history. He finished that year, you ready for this? With 205 points. Run that through your skull. And look, I get the game is different now than it was in the 80s in the NHL, but still, an NHL player scored over 200 points in a season. Just vile was Wayne Gretzky. Remember a young little Terry Ford watching some NHL back in the day. Look, when I was a little kid, I loved 80s and 90s. 80s to mid-90s hockey. Because, again, I've said this before, as a hockey fan, I love goals and fights. Perfect game for me was like 5-4 with about 3 fights. Gretzky on this day, quickest to 100 points in a season. This day in 1995, Jerry Rice, the San Francisco 49ers, caught passes for 289 yards, also 3 scores, in a win over the Vikings' 5th highest yardage receiving in a game in NFL history. 2005, Indianapolis Colts won their first 13 games, the 4th team in NFL history to do so. They lost at home 26-17 to San Diego. That was the year the Colts won their first 13. They rested some players. It was very controversial, if my memory serves me. And that was the year, too, I believe the Colts at home lost to the Steelers in the playoffs. And the Steelers went on as the 6th seed to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, my memory doesn't work as good as it used to, so I could have screwed that whole thing up. But that's what I remember. 2011, the Green Bay Packers' 19-game winning streak, the second longest in NFL history, was snapped with a 19-14 loss at Kansas City. Remember, the Packers had won the Super Bowl coming off the 2010 season. Also, greatest day in the history of the world, or the vault, I should say. New England defeated Denver to clinch the AFC East to earn a first-round bye. 8 straight division titles for the Patriots, longest streak in NFL history. All right, I'll throw you one real quick. Music history. There's some depressing stuff today in music history, man. Really is. Also some incarcerations on this day in music history. But on this day in music history, this was sad, man. It really was. The U.S. Medical Examiner said Stone Temple Pilots frontman Scott Weiland died from a toxic mix of drugs, including cocaine, alcohol, and ecstasy. Weiland was 48 years old when he was found dead on his tour bus outside a hotel in Bloomington, Minneapolis, December 3rd of that year. Yeah, look, I like me some Stone Temple Pilots. Scott Weiland, I remember reading a deep dive in Rolling Stone about Weiland. Dude just couldn't save himself. It was sad. But on this day, the Medical Examiner came out with Scott Weiland did die from a toxic mix of drugs. All right, so there you go. There's your vault. Throw a little music history in with the sports on the post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging around. We have the 5 o'clock news coming up from Integrated Media in just a little bit. You know, we talked, obviously, to Shane yesterday, and we appreciate Coach Beamer for his time. He's always great with us. And we appreciate Shane, and Coach jumped on yesterday. And we talked about a variety of things. And, you know, in case you missed it, one of the conversation pieces was about Kendall Briles and just his history with quarterbacks.
From a Kendall standpoint, he was a sitting offensive coordinator. He has done it with multiple quarterbacks, whether it be Robert Griffin III at Baylor or whether it be Josh Hoover, the young man they had out at TCU this past season. Different styles of quarterbacks. But then I also got to see him up close and personal a few years ago when we went out to Arkansas and played him, and he had K.J. Jefferson as their quarterback, and Rocket Sanders was the running back, and being able to see what he did with that. So that's that's what excited me about Kendall was just proven coordinator, college level, done it with multiple style quarterbacks, could tweak the system to whatever his personnel was.
Yeah, and that right there is the big piece for me. I just think the best offensive coordinators tweak and build their system around the skill sets of their players. It can't be so rigid. It's got to be like, okay, we got to build this to your skill set. Yeah, it's like asking me to repair the transmission in a car. Not a good idea if you want your transmission to work. It's always build the offense around the skill set of your players, especially your quarterback. 5 o'clock news coming up from Integrated Media here on the Postgame Show. Appreciate you hanging out like always. Terry Ford, Jay will be back tomorrow at 3 here on the Game Network, and the Game TV. Oh, taking a look at the traffic. As soon as we get that little window back up in front of us. I'm not in the traffic copter. I know you're shocked by that. Oh, the traffic. We've had some accidents. Absolutely. And as soon as this refreshes, we'll have them for you. Here we go. Bush River Road at I-20, Faro Road at Hardscrabble, also I-26 westbound at Harbison, that's exit 103. I-126 westbound at I-26, also 77 northbound at Killian, that is exit 22. Sumter Road at Taylor, Broad River Road at Greystone Boulevard, Woodland Hills Road at St. Andrews. 5 o'clock news coming up from Integrated Media. Okay, let's kick the 5 o'clock news. Sponsored by Integrated Media. Very interesting goings on coming out of Cincinnati in the NFL that we have not talked about. Something's up with Joe Burrow. And if you've heard Joe Burrow's comments recently about playing the game for fun and just some other things that Burrow has been saying, kind of cryptic stuff, all of it comes out to one thing, just my opinion. Joe Burrow he's basically telling the Bengals, get your bleep together or I'm going to want out of here. The Bengals are working on their third straight year missing the postseason. Burrow's getting beat up. The offensive line has not protected him. The Bengals have not consistently fortified the offensive line to protect him. And Burrow's looking around saying, do better. Defense is terrible. Offensive line is, yeah, they signed, Chase and Higgins, Burrow's two wide receivers. And, of course, you love that if you're Joe Burrow. But it doesn't matter who your receivers are. It could be Jerry Rice and Randy Moss, but every time you drop back, you get the snot knocked out of you, and you can't throw the ball. You can't complete passes laying on your back. So, I think Joe Burrow is letting the Bengals know, let's get this going. Get it together. Get your head out of your lower extremities, and let's get this franchise back to where we were a few years ago when we were in the Super Bowl. And if you're Cincinnati, players come and go, and we've talked to Langston Moore about it. Players come and go, coaches come and go, front office personnel come and go. The one constant is the ownership in Cincinnati. This is the same crew that Carson Palmer would rather retire than play for. The football gods did you a solid by handing you Joe Burrow. Don't screw it up. Quit being the Bengals. Because if you lose a second high-level quarterback, and Carson Palmer was a high-level quarterback, not as good as Joe Burrow, but still a high-level quarterback. If you lose another one because they want to get the heck away from your cheap organization, and I mean cheap by the smallest scouting department in the league, they don't have a typical structure set up like other NFL teams do, just the basic football operation structure. The Bengals are they've been laughed at for years in the league. Basically, it's get it together. Start operating like a real NFL team. Don't look at the janitor. Hey, Skippy, when you finish mopping the bathroom, we got some tape for you to watch. We need your thoughts on some of these offensive linemen. Take it to the next level, because this guy's going to want to leave. He doesn't want to, miss the playoffs, finish with 6, 7, 8 wins. He doesn't care how many yards he throws for. He wants to win and compete. And right now, that's not what you're doing. There's a lot of talk that Zach Taylor will get let go, the head coach. And that could happen. Again, you've missed the playoffs multiple years in a row. But again, coaches come and go there. Players come and go. The consistency is the highest level of the organization, which, again, just is a punchline. 5 o'clock news from Integrated Media. As we look around a little bit of the NFL. Tua Tagovailoa being benched for Quinn Ewers. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I want to focus more on starting Quinn Ewers, the rookie. Okay. Well, if you think, and look, this is nothing against Quinn Ewers, good college quarterback. Remember, taken on the third day of the draft. And unless Quinn Ewers has been coached up like nobody's business, the knock on Quinn Ewers was, the minute you put some heat on him, bad things happen. And unless that's changed, and unless he's better dealing with pressure and his pocket presence is better and things of that nature, Quinn Ewers? Okay. Maybe you want to see what you got with Quinn Ewers since you're now eliminated from the playoffs? Okay. Why not? A couple of the Dolphin defenders, a couple of Dolphin players, I should say, are all about Ewers. Bradley Chubb, the edge pass rusher in Miami, said Ewers is a dog who's frustrated Miami linebackers with his play in practice, and center Aaron Brewer called the rookie a baller. It's one thing to run the practice scout squads, run the scout squad in practice. It's another thing to play against real teams in the NFL with real defenses who are, schemed up to inflict pain and suffering to you. We'll see. But Quinn Ewers will start. I think Mike McDaniel is done in Miami. He'll get fired at the end of the year. Which I thought McDaniel was moving his way along to a nice career as an NFL head coach, and the last couple of years have been just strange. Part of it was Tyreek Hill's been hurt, and when you don't have that guy, your offense it's not the same. Ask Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City how that's going. So, McDaniel will get fired at the end of the year. Tua, the dead money, and you're going to spread it over 2 years. It's 90-some million in dead money, which you'll spread over 2 years, so it's 40-some million of a dead money hit on your cap, which is insane. But the word is Miami, they're sitting Tua down, and they're going to do what they can to move away from him in the offseason. I mean, what are you going to do? Who's going to trade for him? Who's going to take that contract? It's the Dolphins is going to open up their mouth and eat a lot of money. A lot of money. And then the Dolphins will move on with a new quarterback and a new head coach going into 2026. Okay, weird story. Puka Nacua has been in the news lately. Yesterday we were talking about that story where he was on a YouTuber show or podcast or whatever, talking about the NFL referees make calls so they can get on TV, which was a weird take. I mean, that's one thing. That's something your drunk buddy says when you're sitting around like in the man cave and you've had a few too many. And he goes, I think, and follow me here. I think the referees make bad calls because they want to be on TV. And everybody starts laughing, right? But Puka Nacua said it, and he was sober. And I thought it was a weird take. Now we get this story. There's a couple of Puka Nacua stories. The brother of Puka Nacua, Rams star wide receiver, was one of two men arrested over the weekend for allegedly stealing a vehicle that reportedly belonged to Lakers forward Adu Thoreau. The men were arrested on Saturday. They are Trey Rose, 27 years old, and Samson Nacua, also 27, the brother of Puka Nacua. The two men were arrested Saturday afternoon for allegedly taking a vehicle without the owner's consent, and they were released that night. Now, they just, take off with the guy's ride, and so it was reported stolen. Was it really stolen? Just a very weird story with Puka Nacua's brother involved. Then Nacua has this story. And I just saw this blurb during a break. Nacua issued a statement today apologizing for performing a gesture on an internet live stream that was, quote, anti-Semitic in nature and perpetuated harmful stereotypes against Jewish people. In the statement, Nacua said at the time he had no idea of the nature of the gesture, which has been associated with anti-Semitic themes. I deeply apologize to anyone who was offended by my actions. I did not stand for any, as I do not stand for any forms of racism, bigotry, or hate, or another group of people. When I appeared the other day on a social media live stream, it was suggested to me to perform a specific movement as part of my next touchdown celebration. At the time, I had no idea this act was anti-Semitic in nature. I deeply apologize to anyone who was offended by my actions, as I do not stand for that sort of thing. Nakua made the gesture on a live stream, in the same live stream where he had the weird riff about the NFL officials and refs. One of the internet streamers suggested that Nakua would perform this gesture as part of his next touchdown celebration. And of course, the NFL said the league strongly condemns all forms of discrimination and derogatory behavior directed at any group of people or individuals. And so, yeah. So, been an interesting couple days for Puka Nakua. Just saying. Very interesting couple of days. 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media. One other story. USA Baseball is getting two-time defending American League Cy Young Award winner Tariq Skubal to pitch in the World Baseball Classic. Mark DeRosa runs USA Baseball, manages USA Baseball. On Thursday said the Tigers ace will join the pitching staff that includes National League Cy Young Award winner Paul Skeens, among others. And again, is that good for American baseball for the World Baseball Classic? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, and Aaron Judge is playing, Kyle Schwarber, Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Pete Crow Armstrong of the Cubs, Cal Raleigh of the Mariners, Will Smith of the Dodgers, Bobby Wood Jr. of the Royals, Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles, just to name a few, Bryce Terang of the Brewers. And look, it's great because you love to see America win the World Baseball Classic. Obviously, we're all patriotic and stuff. But of course, these baseball teams, and look, let's just be honest, these owners and GMs and managers cringe that these guys get through the season or get through the World Baseball Classic without getting hurt. You saw that a few years ago. Was Edwin Diaz of the Mets, their closer, got hurt, missed in the World Baseball Classic, and I believe missed the season. I mean, it happens. What was that international competition years ago when Paul George, NBA player, had that awful lower leg knee injury? So you're always just, if you're letting your professional athletes play in these events, and look, I love these events, but man, if you're an owner, manager, general manager, coach, you're just like, please God, let them get through it. Let them get through it healthy. Let them get through it healthy. But, the U.S., pretty good. You got both Cy Young Award winners on your World Baseball Classic squad. All right, that's a 5 o'clock news sponsored by our buds Integrated Media. Up next, the Gamecock Notebook. We'll talk some Gamecock football, share a couple of cuts from Shane if you missed it yesterday. All next here on the Postgame Show with Terry Ford. Appreciate you hanging. We go till 6 on the game. Time to crack open the Gamecock notebook. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out as we go till 6 here on the game. All right, tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on our sister station, B106, South Carolina, the number 3 ranked women, will travel to take on South Florida. Right now, to get you caught up on the Gamecocks, the women, if you look at the analytics, BartTorvik.com, South Carolina is 3rd overall behind UCLA and UConn. The number 4th ranked offensive unit in regards to efficiency, and the number 2 ranked defensive unit in regards to efficiency. So South Carolina, obviously, top 5 in both categories, just ahead of Texas and LSU. And if you look at, again, the SEC, South Carolina, Texas, LSU, and Kentucky and Oklahoma all in the top 10. So 5 of the top 10 are SEC schools. The SEC is better in women's hoops this year than they've been in the past. It's going to be interesting how South Carolina, obviously they'll do well, but what level of doing well in a more deeper conference when it comes to good, solid basketball teams. But anyway, tonight against South Florida, what we've seen with the Gamecocks, with the women so far this year, is a team that offensively, like the perimeter play with Latson and the 2 Johnsons, Tessa and Raven. Latson second on the team in scoring behind Joyce Edwards. And, Latson is making 45% of her threes, hitting 52% from the floor, over 83% at the line. Latson's just tough to deal with. Matter of fact, this team has 3 perimeter players all shooting over 80% from the free throw line. When you look at Latson, Tessa Johnson, Raven Johnson. And all 3 of those players are hitting over 40% from 3. So the perimeter with South Carolina is really good. Joyce Edwards is leading the team in scoring. She doesn't take many threes. She's made 2 of 5. Joyce Edwards does her damage inside the three-point line. But she leads the team in scoring, hitting almost 60% of her shots. Medina Okot has been a double-double machine at 15 and 11, making 61% of her shots. The depth thing, we talked to Brad Muller earlier in the show about the depth piece with South Carolina's women. Yeah, depth is very young. You're looking at McKeer and McDowell, 2 freshmen. Maddie McDaniel, also off the bench, a sophomore. So you don't have a lot of veteran depth, which, again, in the new world of college athletics, sometimes that depth you used to have is going to go play somewhere else where they can start and make a little NIL rev share money as well. But this basketball team starting 5 is really good. Really good. And they might play more minutes this year than they've been playing the last few years because Dawn is not as deep as she's been in the past. But that is tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip again on our sister station, B106. The men, Clemson Tuesday night obviously was not good. A 7-point loss at Littlejohn. This team has struggled from 3. And the red flag is when you struggle from 3, that's one thing, but when you have built yourself to be a three-point shooting team and you struggle from 3, that's not good. When you are 296th in the country in three-point shooting percentage, it's not good. When you are taking 48% of your shots from 3, which is 34th in the country, and only making a tick under 30% of them, it's not good. Do I think South Carolina is going to get better at shooting threes? Yeah. The numbers of some of these players, they're not under 30% three-point shooters. It's going to get better because you built the offense around it. And I'll say this, I bring this up. South Carolina's top 30 in the country in 2-point field goal percentage. They're making their 2s at a high rate. Part of that is the floor is very spaced because of your three-point shooting. It gives you, better looks inside that three-point arc, whether it's driving to the rack. You have space to maneuver, space to beat people off the bounce, space to drive and kick or drive and dish. So we'll see if this continues the trend of struggling from three but being really good from two. Does Lamont start to tweak his offense a little bit to look at more two-point opportunities as you have the defensive spread out? I don't know. We'll find out. But the struggles from three have got to change. This is not a great defensive team. They've gotten better. They're now 69th in the country in defensive efficiency. But they're not going to, lock folks down defensively and win games on defensive end of the court. They're just not at this point. Maybe that'll change. But they'll go at it again coming up with South Carolina State Monday night. And you'll obviously be able to hear that game right here on 107.5, the game in Columbia, and our affiliate 100.3, the game in Myrtle Beach. All right, so Shane Beamer hung out with us yesterday, and again, we thank Coach a ton for giving us, almost a half hour of his time. Shane talked about a bunch of different things, especially focusing on Kendall Briles. But one other conversation that Shane had with us was talking about the needs in the transfer portal, because this team has got to go get some help from the portal, obviously. And here's Shane talking about that.
Yeah, there's certainly other positions. It kind of goes back, Jay, to where, I'm like every coach where when you had 85 scholarships, now that's getting ready to grow, so that'll tweak or change the number of scholarships that we can bring into our program. But when you had 85 scholarships, you always had a target number of players at each position that you wanted to have on scholarship. So, for example, our number based off having 85 total scholarships is we wanted to have 17 offensive linemen on scholarship at all times. We've always wanted to have 5 running backs on scholarship at all times. And when you were based off 85, and when you look at our roster right now, there's positions, running back, offensive line, where we are certainly under those numbers. So in order to not just compete and win games, but to be able to function in practice, we've got to be able to bring in bodies and players that can help us compete for championships here. So certainly the offensive line, from a depth standpoint, we've got to increase the competition there. With Brandon Cisse and Jalen Kilgore deciding to go on to the NFL, that's a aspect of it that maybe you didn't plan on. You knew it was a possibility, but now it is a reality. So you've got to be able to add depth in the secondary. And then definitely from a running back standpoint, we only have, it is what it is, and it's unfortunate, but we have not signed a high school running back in 2 years. And that can't happen. And because of that, we're now in a situation where we literally have 3 running backs in our entire program on scholarship. And that's tough. So we need to go out and find some guys to increase the competition and add to the depth in that room. But the positive aspect of it is those 3 scholarship running backs that we have, I think, are really, really good SEC running backs that we're fired up about. Matthew Fuller, Jawarn Howell, and Isaiah Augustave, who transferred in over the summer. So I don't think we need to go out and just, bring in some dynamic starter. I know we don't. Would that be nice if he wanted to come relatively cheap? Yeah. But do we need to go out and spend a ton of money to go get a dude at running back necessarily? I don't feel that way, because I feel like we have, quote unquote, some dudes already in that room.
So there's Shane talking about the dudes. And, he brought up the secondary, losing Cisse and Kilgore to the NFL draft. That's a thing. And, you got Vakari Swain, who had some good moments at corner last year, or at DB. And you could see Swain getting more confident, getting better as the year went along. Now, is he ready to step in there and be the one at boundary corner? Could be. He's got a lot of athleticism. That's for sure. So we'll see. In other places, look, the offensive line, we said this, you got a bunch of guys who were very highly thought of coming out of high school who are in that offensive line room. They just haven't developed. So when you get Randy Clements, Coach Clem, going in there and starting to evaluate along with Kendall Briles, and you start evaluating these offensive linemen, Do you think you have to go need a veteran out of the portal? You need a center. Last time I checked, center pretty important. So you go get a veteran center out of the portal. And then you see what you do with the rest of these guys on the offensive line, like the Josiah Thompsons of the world, the Shed Surratts. What developmental piece do you need to work on to get them to the level they need to get to consistently to be good SEC offensive linemen, at least solid SEC offensive linemen? So the portal is going to be obviously important, and Shane brought up leadership a ton, and we've been discussing that lately as well. All right, Drive Around the SEC is coming up next. Somebody got hired, and they've got a gig in the coaching world of the SEC, a very familiar name. We'll get to that next on the Postgame Show. All right, see what's happening on the roads in the Midlands. Accident, Gervais at Millwood. Also, Harbison at Bauer Parkway, hard scrabble at Wilson Boulevard, I-26 westbound, right after the I-77 exit 116. Shop Road at Atlas Road, also Spear Creek Church Road at I-20. We'll come back, drive around the SEC. Somebody's got a gig in the SEC, a very familiar coaching name. We'll have that for you next, right here on the Postgame Show. Okay, so I'm sitting here. You know, you always during a break, you're scrolling around, see what's going on in the news. You don't want to miss anything. And I saw this. So it'll be very interesting to those in the world of college football, especially in the SEC. So Texas Longhorns, their defensive coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski, was fired, along with defensive passing game coordinator Dwayne Aquina on Thursday. Longhorns coach Steve Sarkisian announced that he wasn't bringing back Kwiatkowski, who had been the defensive coordinator since 2021. And Aquina, in a major shakeup for a unit that didn't meet expectations in a lot of people's minds in a 9-3 season. So, Texas needs a defensive coordinator. Guess who they're hiring? You might have heard of him. Will Muschamp. Muschamp will return to Texas. He was defensive coordinator there from 2008 to 2010, was the head coach in waiting behind Mack Brown. And now Muschamp will be brought back to be the defensive coordinator. All whiteboards in Austin are scared. Look, Muschamp, it's a very interesting hire. I mean, as a defensive coordinator, obviously he had some good moments and good years and some not so wow years. But a lot of people think that Muschamp is a very high-level defensive mind. Hung out with Kirby here for X amount of years at Georgia. And now back at it after taking a year off. And again, the story says he took off 2025 to spend more time with his family. And then after a year with his family, he's like, okay, I got to get back to coaching. My family's driving me crazy. I just made that up, obviously. But I thought it was interesting when Muschamp was at Georgia that he went from co-defensive coordinator for a couple years to just an analyst in 2024. And part of that could have been he wanted to take his foot off the gas a little bit and spend more time with his family, or just, not grind as hard as he'd been grinding all those years. Well, now Muschamp must be re-energized and ready to roll because he'll take over the D.C. Gig for the Texas Longhorns. Once again, I find that quite interesting. Drive around the SEC. College football playoff tomorrow night. 2 SEC squads. Oklahoma hosting Alabama. And Jay and I talked about this earlier on the show. Oklahoma won that game against Alabama, and it's one of those things where you call it complimentary football, the old cliche. Oklahoma won that game because their defense and special teams stepped up big time. And Alabama's special teams couldn't get out of their own way, and the Alabama offense was just sitting around looking at the Oklahoma defense saying, would you like to take the ball from us? Feel free. But Alabama, in that game, almost outgained Oklahoma 2-1. But Oklahoma forced turnovers. They've got good special teams play. Their kicker is a Groza Award winner. So Oklahoma, their offense hasn't been the same since John Mateer got hurt earlier in the year, the Sooner quarterback. They hit some big plays every now and then, though. They hit some explosives, but their offense doesn't, they're not going to beat you with 10, 12, 13 play drives, or they haven't recently. They're an offense that just every now and then will pop a big play. The defense has to set them up with short fields or the special teams, and then they can go score points. But that's just the thing. Oklahoma has not been very efficient on offense. They're 95th in yards per play, 89th in points per drive. It's the least effective offense in the college football playoff. But the one thing they do well, they score in the red zone. They do that very well. Alabama doesn't run it, but they like to throw it a lot. Ty Simpson, for a while, was on a heater. But then all of a sudden, end of the year, Alabama can't run the ball. Ryan Williams, their sophomore wide receiver with all that potential, all of a sudden you threw it to him, he dropped it. You saw that in the South Carolina game. Ryan Williams' drop rate, dig this, is 13.4%. The average nationally is 5%. I think Alabama wins a close game. I believe Alabama obviously is better on offense than Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a better defensive team, but follow me here. Alabama's defense to me is better than Oklahoma's offense. If Alabama doesn't decide to soil themselves with turnovers and crippling penalties, if the Tide can play clean, I think they win a close game in Norman. And that is tomorrow night, getting the college football playoff underway. Drive around the SEC here on the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, thanks for hanging with us. Men's college basketball, SEC-wise, only one game tonight. Number 25, Georgia, is hosting Western Carolina. Georgia this year, 9-1, 6-0 at home. You know, Mike White, I said this about Mike White. He's a really good head coach. Just you're following a guy that won back-to-back championships. Mike White, what he did at Florida was good, but it wasn't Billy Donovan. At Georgia, they love Mike White, what he's doing. They love him. Guy's phenomenal. Compared to what they've had, yeah. It's always perception, right? And expectation. All right, last night, Vanderbilt beat Memphis in overtime. Vandy's still undefeated. Alabama outlasted South Florida 104-93. Florida whooped St. Francis 102-61, and Ole Miss held off Alabama A&M 80-66. And Chris Beard didn't, go nuts and have his head explode. That's what happened last night in the SEC. How about Vanderbilt, undefeated, number 13 in the country? Look, Vanderbilt's been good at hoop in the past. This isn't Vanderbilt football we're talking about. Vanderbilt basketball has had some good moments. And they're back at it again, 11-0, number 13 in the country. All right, there's your drive around the SEC. We'll come back. Jay is not here to do Jay versus the Internet, but we will look at what could be the biggest game in the NFL so far this season, which is tonight, by the way. It's a post-game show with Terry Ford. We are hanging here up until 6 on the game. All right, little Jay versus the internet without our buddy Jay. We'll still take a look at what's going on from a wagering angle. Rams and Seahawks tonight in Seattle. This game is huge. We'll get to that in a second. But Seahawks are home, 1.5 favorite. Seattle 5-2 at home. The Rams are 5-2 away. Both are 11-3. I think the Rams are the better team. Look, the 12th man's a thing in Seattle. Those folks are going to be nice and lubricated and lathered up. I think the Rams win. I just think they're a tick better. I like their offense better. Defensively, the Seahawks are excellent, but the Rams are good too. And listen, here's the deal on this game, why it's so important. If the Rams win, they have a 94% chance of winning the NFC West and a 90% chance of winning the number 1 seed. If the Rams lose, that drops to 24% to win the West and 20% for the number 1 seed. It's like a 70% drop. The Seahawks, if they win tonight, have a 55% chance of snagging the NFC West. If they lose, only a 2% chance. If the Seahawks win, they have a 53% chance to be the top seed in the NFC. If they lose, it drops to 2%. So 50-some% drop there. So this is a huge game. And for me, one of the things, and look, it's a team game. But the difference in quarterback, Matthew Stafford is having a phenomenal year. I mean, MVP-type season. Now, Sam Darnold's been good, don't get me wrong, really good. But there's two Sam Darnolds. There's the Sam Darnold when the pocket's clean and the Sam Darnold when there's pressure. Sam Darnold this year, when kept clean, that's 68% of his dropbacks. Darnold's hitting 75% of his throws, 14 TDs, only 5 picks, 18 big-time throws out of 26. That's something. That's a guy, when it's clean, and he can read it, process it, and just let it rip. Darnold he's had a hell of a year. Now the Sam Darnold under pressure. 32% of the time, Darnold's only hit 49% of his passes under pressure. He's thrown 6 interceptions, 8 TD passes. 8 of his turnover-worthy plays this year are under pressure. So that's a thing. You get pressure on Darnold. Obviously, he can make mistakes. So tonight, I will take Seattle. I'll take the Rams. I think they're the better team. The over-under tonight is 42.5. I'm going over tonight. I just got a feeling. So I'll go with the over 42.5, and I'll take the Rams to cover. This just popped before we get out of here. Brian Rowe, South Carolina wide receiver, is planning on entering the transfer portal. That's from Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports. News of Rowe's departure from the program came from Rowe's agent, Brian Miller. Now, Rowe caught 19 passes this year for 149 yards and a touchdown. But remember, Rowe also had a week where he was disciplined by Shane Beamer. And when Rowe came back, Jaden Sellers had kind of stepped in Rowe's spot and started getting some snaps and making some plays. The game Rowe was suspended for was the Oklahoma game. I like Rowe. He's quick. He's twitchy. I think he's got a real nice future, especially as a slot receiver. Hate to see him go if he does indeed roll. You got a lot of young receivers. You might see some of these other young receivers, like Lex Cyrus didn't play, really redshirted. A kid from PA, around Harrisburg. Could he go somewhere? Because it's a crowded wide receiver room. Nick Harbor comes back. You got Nick Harbor, Jaden Sellers, Malik Clark, Mazeo Bennett still around. I know you forget, but he is. So it's a crowded wide receiver room. Also, you got Donovan Murph. Can't forget Donovan Murph, who should have been in high school last year. Donovan Murph looks like he's got the goods to be a heck of a player at some point. So Brian Rowe, and who knows what the disciplinary situation was. But who knows what was going on off the field. Brian Rowe hitting the portal, which, again, I hate to see because I think Brian Rowe has a ton of ability. So that's the latest that just popped as we were doing a little Jay versus the internet. And that's how the rest of the wide receiver room shakes itself out. But there's still a lot of talent there, don't get me wrong. But Rowe has skills, it's a shame. But you knew with all those wide receivers that eventually a couple of them were going to burn off and hit the portal because only so many snaps to go around. So that's the latest news. Brian Rowe jumping into the transfer portal of South Carolina wide receiver. All right, tonight, just a reminder. Well, let me do tomorrow first. Tomorrow morning, 6 to 9 a.m. from the Myrtle Beach Bowl at Coastal Carolina. The early game will be there. Elijah and Preston and Jen. They will roll from there. They will talk. Chance Miller, the athletic director, the new head coach, will jump on. Our buddy Mike Yuva, now working with Chance, will also pop on the show. So we got a lot going on tomorrow, Myrtle Beach Bowl. The early game will be out there broadcasting live. Tonight, Carolina calls in about an hour with men's head basketball coach Lamont Paris and Derek Scott. That's right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. On our sister station, B106, tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip. The Gamecock women take on South Florida. So all that's going on tomorrow morning and tonight. Also, you can win basketball tickets for the men and the women, season tickets for the rest of this season in January. Go to 1075thegame.com to get more details. It's our Happy New Year gift to you. Again, you can register at 1075thegame.com. Talk to you tomorrow at 3, post-game show here on The Game. If you are looking to redo stuff in your home, maybe it's just the kitchen, maybe it's a kitchen in the bathroom, maybe it's plumbing, fixtures, lighting, maybe you just want to do everything. Your first phone call is to Kreger Showrooms, formerly The Nest. Still in Gadsden, the Vista. Just change the name to Kreger Showrooms. 803-978-2025 is the number. You make that call. You say, look, I'm thinking about redoing the bathroom. I want to put a tub in, do some stuff with the plumbing, the fixtures. They will put you in touch with the expert. 100 years of experience at Kreger Showrooms. They know what's up. They put you in touch with the expert. You talk. You get an idea about your budget and what you're looking for. Then they bring you in for a sit-down. You walk around that showroom, which is fantastic. And you will find what you're looking for within your budget. 803-978-2025. Kreger Showrooms on Gadsden, the Vista. Again, 803-978-2025. Go with the folks with all the experience, knowledge, and know-how. Kreger Showrooms.